Hello and welcome back to this informational series on optional practical training. In this video, we will be going over what information to consider when choosing your start date for your OPT. When applying for OPT, choosing your start date can prove to be a challenging step because of the various factors you need to consider. Once you have chosen a start date and applied with USCIS, you cannot change your start date, so it is important to consider all factors first. You are able to apply for your OPT as soon as 90 days before completion of your academic program, and as late as 60 days after completion. These 60 days are considered a grace period. Please note that after this grace period, you will no longer be eligible to apply for post-completion OPT. For example, if your program ends on May 31st, your first date to choose is June 1st, with the last possible start date being July 30th. The first factor you need to consider when choosing your start date is your job status. If you have secured a job offer before putting your application in, you may choose your start date to align with the start date of your position. For example, if you're graduating during the spring semester and have a job offer starting on July 1st, you should choose July 1st as your OPT start date. If you receive a job offer after applying, but its start date is before your OPT start date, you can only start working as soon as your OPT is approved and the start date on your employment authorization document is reached. For example, if you graduate during the spring semester and apply for OPT with the start date of July 1st and then receive a job offer with the start date of June 15th, you would still need to wait until July 1st to start working. This is because you can only begin employment once your OPT is approved and the start date on your EAD has arrived. Remember that you are only allowed 90 days of unemployment during your post-completion OPT. These unemployment days will begin counting on your first day of OPT, as shown on your EAD card. For example, if you graduate in the spring semester, you can select the start date of June 1st. In this case, if you get a job offer that starts on June 15th, you would be eligible to start your work on time. In this case, you would be using 15 days of your allowed 90 cumulative unemployment days. If you do not have a job offer at the time of applying for OPT, you should maximize your time for job searching. You can select any date during the 60-day grace period after completing your program. By selecting a start date within this window, you allow yourself additional time to search for a position before the unemployment clock starts ticking. For instance, if you graduate on May 31st and choose a start date of July 30th, you can utilize the 2 months for job hunting without worrying about your unemployment days. Choosing a later start date can be a helpful strategy to extend your job search timeline and give yourself the best chance to secure a position. Of course, if you have a job that you want to start right away, or you simply want to be available to accept and start a job immediately, you may want to request an earlier start date. When job searching and deciding on a start date, you also want to factor in the current state of the economy. In a strong economy with high job availability, an earlier start date might be advantageous to begin working sooner. In a weak economy, a later start date could provide additional time for job searching and allow the market to recover. You should also factor in trends in your specific field to understand how the broader economy might impact your job prospects. Please note that once an I-20 has been issued for OPT, the start date may not be changed, so plan accordingly. Once you have decided on a start date and received your I-20, you will be set to file your application with USCIS. It may take USCIS over 60 days to process your application when it is received. The employment authorization document can take 60 to 90 days to arrive. Please note that you can request premium processing for the EAD. USCIS guarantees a 30-day processing turnaround, and it may take 7 to 14 business days after it is approved to receive it. The USCIS processing time is a factor to consider when choosing your start date. You need to consider whether or not the timeline of your application aligns with the USCIS being able to approve your application by your listed start date. Because USCIS can take several months, plan accordingly, and if possible, apply early. If you are applying after graduation, consider putting a late start date on your USCIS form. Remember that you must choose a start date that is before the end of your 60-day grace period. For example, if your program ends on May 31st, your first date to choose is June 1st, with the last possible start date being July 30th. And please note that you cannot start before your EAD is approved. If you plan to travel soon after graduation, you must apply for OPT before departing the U.S. If you leave the U.S. and do not apply, you will no longer be eligible to apply for OPT. If you plan to travel, it would be beneficial to apply for OPT early. This gives you more time to receive your EAD, considering USCIS processing times, EAD approval, and the turnaround of receiving the EAD itself. If you leave the U.S. while your OPT application is pending, and you do not have your EAD and a job offer letter, you may face difficulties re-entering the U.S. It is generally safer to travel after your OPT has been approved, and you have received your EAD card with your EAD and a job offer. You have stronger proof of your intention to return to the U.S. to work in your field of study. Thank you for watching this video, and if you have any further questions, please check out our other videos on the USF website under the Office of International Services. And always remember, go bold.